Welcome, everybody. I'm Alan Cohen, and this is the 11th in our series on A Course in Miracles Made Easy, based generally on my book, A Course in Miracles Made Easy, which is based on A Course in Miracles. And as always, we're going to start with a moment of prayer and intention. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes and take a breath, we acknowledge that this 1 hour is given to truth, that there are principles and realities that make our life worthwhile. And so we invite Great Spirit, Holy Spirit, God Almighty, the light of the world, to be with us for 1 hour and really bring some illumination into our lives. We're looking for peace of mind. We're looking for healing. We're looking for well-being. We're looking for health. We're looking for prosperity. And we recognize that the source of all that is has given all of these blessings and gifts to us already. And so we open now to receive them, each in our own way. We open our minds and our hearts such that each person who's listening, watching live or to the archive gets something really valuable and really important. And if you'd like to agree with me and say out loud, and so it is, and so it is. So we're taking the theme today, Beyond Magic. It's chapter 11 from my book. And I'm going to tell you a story or two and then explain to you how the Course in Miracles views the idea of magic. So the story goes, it's a legend, I believe it's a Hindu legend, that when God created the heavens and the earth, there were gods, demigods, angels who were in charge of the earth. And they decided that they were going to play a game, and they were about to put people on the planet. And they said, let's play a game where we hide the secret of life somewhere. And they said, where should we hide it? One god said, well, let's put it at the top of the highest mountain. No. They'll climb there, they'll find it. Go to the bottom of the ocean. No, they'll find it there. And they went round and round and round until someone said, let's hide it inside each person. They'll never think to look there. Now, I actually had kind of a personal experience of how this works. I'm going to show you some images here. One moment. So, many years ago, I took a group on a pilgrimage to Egypt. And we meditated and went to all the pyramids and the sacred sites. And one woman came back with a very interesting experience. She said, I decided not to stay with the tour. And so I went behind the Great Pyramid and I started to meditate. And I looked down and I saw a round pink stone, like a jewel. I thought, oh, wow, how cool is that? She said, maybe this was from the headdress from a pharaoh or from some ancient heirloom. And somehow it rose to the surface. Let me hold this and I'll meditate on it. So she held it in her hand and she prayed and meditated, and suddenly images of ancient Egypt came to her, pharaohs and sarcophaguses and pyramids and sphinxes and processions and feasts. And she said, oh my God, I'm back in ancient Egypt. This is amazing. And so she just went on and on. She was being given a vision by God. And then she noticed something really interesting. She noticed that this stone, which was solid, started to feel a little softer. And it got softer and softer. And she opened her eyes and looked down at her hand, and it got pretty gooey. And she touched it and she realized that it was not a stone at all. It was a piece of bubblegum. That's a true story. And so she ended up with this wad of messy bubblegum instead of the jewel from the crown of Pharaoh. So it's a true story. It's a funny story. But the idea is that she created that experience with her mind. So the question could be asked, Was her trip to ancient Egypt any less real because it was bubblegum than it would have been if it was a real stone? And the answer is not really, because what created her connection was not the jewel or the bubblegum, but her mind. So this is a very, very intrinsic theme of A Course in Miracles. So A Course in Miracles talks about magic. And, the Course says that the Course has very unique languaging. We've talked about special relationships and holy relationships and atonement and miracles and forgiveness. Those are all very unique definitions. And the Course has a unique definition of magic. And it says that magic is when you believe, or the belief that any object outside yourself has the power to hurt you or to heal you. So what we're doing is we're taking the power of the mind, which is creative. The mind is the part of us that is God, that God gave us the power to create with our minds, which is the source of all of our experience. And we project it outward, so we think that there's something out there that is doing it to us or for us. And the Course tells us this is really the source of all of our suffering, because we create a separation in our mind between who we are and what's out there, and we think that what's out there has power when it doesn't. And the Course is pretty blunt and direct about this. It says that there's nothing outside you that can hurt you, and nothing outside you that can heal you. Now, this is a pretty radical statement, isn't it? But the Course is a radical Course. I was interviewing Judith Skutch, the founder of the Foundation for Inner Peace, the publisher of A Course in Miracles. And she said, the Course in Miracles is a steep path. And I didn't quite know what she meant by that, but I thought about it. And what she meant was that the Course doesn't accept any intermediaries between us and God. There's no hierarchy. There's no system of ranks. That it's all God or it's not. And of course it is. So what the Course wants us to do is to recognize that we are not in the world, but the world is in us. And everything we think is going on out there is really going on in here. This is one of the primary teachings of the Course. So the Course tells us that you believe that you're sustained by everything but God. Your faith is placed in the most trivial and insane symbols: pills, money, protective clothing, influence, prestige, being liked, knowing the right people, and an endless list of forms of nothingness. Wow. Let's meditate on that for a moment. Forms of nothingness. So it's saying there's forms out there, but they have no substance, that we make up stories about how powerful things are, but it's the story that gives them the power, not any intrinsic power or worth. We endow them with magical powers. We'll talk about some sample objects of magic at the moment. All these things are your replacements for the love of God. So what it says, the Course is just amazing. It says in Lesson 50 that you are sustained by the love of God. The love of God is what gives you life, what keeps you alive, what brings everything good to you. It says anything else that you think besides the love of God is your sustainer, is magic. That is radical. But, do you want to go for the gold? Do you want to go for the silver? I think the Course in Miracles is the gold, really. So here are some forms of magic. Some of many. Medicine, you think medicine is doing it too for you. Money, if I have money, I'm sustained. If I don't, I'm not. Possessions, one of my students in my current coach training, she lost her house in the lava flow a couple years ago from Kilauea volcano. Just One day it was there, and the next day it wasn't. And she said, you know, at the beginning it was very traumatic. She said, now I'm free. She said, I have a whole different life. In a way, it was a good thing to happen. So if you give your power to a house as a magical source, if something happens to the house, you're going to be suffering. Esoteric sciences, astrology, numerology, phrenology, all the ologies, we'll come back and see that there's nothing wrong with these. They work. But if you think that there's something out there that can help you or hurt you, you have the right stars, you have the right numbers, you have the right essential oils, then you've given your power away to them. Gurus, oh my God, have we given our power away to gurus? Healers, that person has the power to heal me. If I don't get to see them, I'm not going to get healed. That healer turned out to be a human being, and now I'm angry at him. That's magic. That's giving your power away. Amulets, I have to be decked out with all the right stones, and if not, my stones are protecting me from evil. Oh my goodness, I didn't bring my stone today. Evil's going to get me. Ah! Sorry, I don't mean to make fun, but I do. Exotic lands. If I can only get to Bali, if I can only get to Machu Picchu, if I can only get to Egypt. Sacred sites. Oh, if I can just meditate at the base of the pyramids, then I'll go to heaven. If I can go to power vortices, I have to get to Sedona. And somebody was sitting at the top of my vortex, and I punched him out because he was taking my power away. And actually, let me tell you a very cute but touching story about that. So a number of years ago, I took a trip to the sacred sites of Europe with a bunch of people. And it was I think it was the harmonic convergence, or one of those days when lots of people predicted that weird things would happen and the world would come to an end, there'd be floods and disasters, and went to the top of the mountain and on and on. And so we're flying from Europe, across Europe, I believe. And a little girl in the group was frightened because she had heard these predictions that the world was coming to an end. And she went to the leader of our group, and I heard her say, what if we crash? You know, what if it's really true? Can we just tell the plane to go to a power spot, power place? And the leader turned to the little girl. She said, you know, honey, she said, you are the power place. You carry the power within you. We don't have to find some power place to land on. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He didn't say if you can just get to the Mount of Olives, you'll be saved. He said the kingdom of heaven is within you. So the Course in Miracles wants to constantly take our power back from external things that we've invested with undue power. Let's go back to the list. Isn't it a fun list? Oops. Okay. Rituals. I have to walk around this statue 3 times. I have to do this water on my hands. I have to kneel down and pray. Once again, these things are not bad. I'm not saying you should not do them. But I am saying that it's not the ritual that does the trick. It's the mind that does the trick. The government wouldn't approve of my gay marriage. How can I need the government to approve of my marriage. Well, God approves of your marriage. If God approves of your marriage, you're married. Corporations, Google's taken over the world, Amazon's taken over the world. Well, maybe on one level that's sort of happening, but do they really have power over your life, or have you attributed magical powers to these big corporations? Technology, oh my God, can we go off on that one? I don't have my phone. Can't communicate with anybody. Meanwhile, people have been communicating without phones for thousands of years. I'm doing pretty well, actually. Exercise, if I can't get to the gym, I'm going to go to hell. Let me put my makeup on. How dare you see me without my makeup? You might not love me. Let me go to a matchmaker. Oh, this person will put me with the right person. Or match.com. Marriage, oh, there's a good one. If I can just get married, if I can just get to the altar, let me get that ring on my finger, then my life will be valid. Then I'll be lovable. Then then my dreams will come true. How many movies and books have been about that? So marriage is a form of magic, isn't it? It's one of the most intense ones because we give so much more power to to marriage than almost anything else to try to get with a partner. Babies, when I have my baby, then I'll be fulfilled. I've been wanting to be a mother all my life, and that baby will be a magical venue in my life. Not that babies are not magical, they're wonderful. Schools, let me get another degree. If I can just get one more degree, let me get my PhD, then I'll be valid. Let me get me another PhD. Let me get that certificate. Let me get that training. And that certificate is magic. Oh my goodness. Real estate, wow, my dream home, my dream property, let me get to it. Now that I found it, I'm in heaven. Well, maybe not. And much, much more. So these are just examples of, the truth is that we have magical relationships, special relationships with almost everything. Now, I'm going to wrap this around in a few minutes and recognize that it's just fine to be married and have babies and wear makeup and have gurus and do numerology and astrology. It's all fine, all good. It just depends on how much power you give to them. Are they in charge of your life, or are you in charge of your life? That's the big thing. That's the big thing. So the Course goes on in lesson 338 to tell us, I am affected only by my thoughts. I'm affected. Now, this is a big lesson, isn't it? It's telling us that there's nothing outside you that affects you. And I've been doing some fun coaching lately. And I often have people come to me for coaching about their marriage or their relationship. And a lady called into my radio show the other day, and she said, my husband just doesn't do what I want him to do, and he's not well, and I've suggested this regimen, and he's kind of negative. So I asked her this question that I've been asking a lot of people. It's probably the most radical question you've ever heard. And I asked her, I said, why do you factor your husband in? Why do you allow your husband to be a factor in your happiness? Why do you allow your husband to be a factor in your happiness? Now that's absolute blasphemy, isn't it? That's absolute heresy, because we've been taught for thousands of years that if I could just get the right husband or wife, and he or she would just behave as I want them to, well, that's the whole purpose of getting a husband, isn't it? So he'll make me happy, or a wife. And the truth is, if you've tried that, it doesn't exactly work, does it? And I said to this lady, you just got to release your husband from your demands on him. You'll be happy then you'll be happy. But as long as you're sitting around waiting for your husband to perform in the way that you want him to, you're not going to be happy, and neither is he. He's going to feel your pressure, and it's going to create enmity between you. She said, yeah, I know I need to do that. Doesn't mean you can't be married. Doesn't mean you don't have somebody who enhances your life. Doesn't mean that you don't share and co-create. But if you're sitting around waiting for your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife to make you happy, you are in deep doo-doo. Because that's how people get divorced, because you didn't do the thing I expected. And the mature couples I know are the ones in which the partners are self-sourcing, that they look within, they look to their spirit, they look to their God, they look to their heart for their joy. And then their marriage or relationship is a lovely creative overflow of two people expressing wholeness from the inside out. We've talked about this before. So in a marriage, you're affected not by your partner, although it certainly appears that way, but as the Course in Miracles tells us, you're affected only by my thoughts. This, friends, is why the Course in Miracles is a steep climb. It's not giving you any stairs in between. It's not saying, well, you're affected pretty much by your thoughts, but then partly by your husband. Yeah, it doesn't say that. It says I'm affected. I don't have a highlighter, but if I had a highlighter, but only by my thoughts. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing, because that's how powerful you are. That's how much God trusts you. God gave you a mind that creates. And when you use that mind creatively or with right thinking, as the Course describes it, when you're in your right mind, then you're happy. If you're not thinking with God, you're not thinking. I saw a bumper sticker that says, unless Jesus is driving, you're just spinning your wheels. Well, we could say, unless you're thinking with God, you're not really going anywhere. So this is a little bit longer quote, but we'll have a look at it. This is from lesson 76, one of my favorite lessons. I'm under no laws but God's. And I'll paraphrase. It says, you think you need money, green strips and metal disc coins. You think you need a pellet, which is a pill, or some fluid pushed into your veins to ward off disease and death. You really think you're alone unless another body is with you? And the Course gets in your grill. It says, it is insanity that thinks these things. It says, you're nuts. We're all nuts. You wouldn't be, nobody would be in this world unless we had some degree of insanity, myself included. Yogananda said that it's very helpful to think of the world as a big mental institution. And each of us hangs out in a ward with people who are crazy in the same way we are. We all agree on a certain form of craziness, and that's the way the world seems real. But the Course says, nope, you're all nuts. You wouldn't be here if you weren't nuts, but it's okay. We're working with it. And the Course says, you call these the money and the vein and the pellet and the sharpened needle and the veins and the partnership. You call them laws, and you have a long list of rituals that protect these laws. And it says you must obey the laws of medicine, of economics, and of health, protect the body and to be saved. It says these are not laws, but madness. Ooh, see, there's no escape. You cannot wiggle out. You cannot find some pocket where it's not true. The Course says either you're under the laws of God or not at all. And the Course says when you get the laws of God, which are always supporting you, then you're really cruising. Let me tell you a really good story. I did a conference a couple months ago with Mike Dooley, wonderful author, good guy. And this fellow came up to me during the break, and he's a really nice looking guy, very strong, clean, vibrant, very healthy looking. He said, a number of years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare debilitating disease, and I got very sick. And he said, I lost so much weight, I was down to 120 pounds. And he's a big guy, so it's 120 pounds had to be very light for him. He said, I saw doctor after doctor after doctor, and nobody helped. He said, I saw over 100 doctors over 7 years. Ooh. And he said, I was taking over 100 prescription pills a day. It's hard for me to believe. I can't even believe that, but I don't think he was lying. I mean, can you imagine the side effects from 100 prescription pills? Unbelievable. And he said, finally, one doctor gave me a very risky experimental treatment, and it didn't work. And he said, you're going to die. And the fellow said, well, that got my attention. So I decided to put aside the doctors and put aside the pills and the treatments. And he said, I began to say to myself, I am healed. I am healed. I am healed. And he said, I said this over and over again. I was digging a pipeline. I was drilling a pipeline down into my very core, into my very center. And he said, I went on with this affirmation intensively for about 6 weeks. And he said, I started to feel better. And some of my symptoms started to disappear. So I kept at it. I kept tapping into the source of all well-being inside me. He said, and I got better. He said, eventually all of my symptoms disappeared. I went back for an exam. I got a clean bill of health. I put weight on. I'm here today. I'm perfectly healthy. He says, I work out of home with my wife. I see my 3 children a lot during the day. He says, my life is wonderful and amazing. And he said, the turning point came when I took my power back from magical sources and I decided to claim healing directly from God. Now, Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying don't go to doctors. Doctors are blessed angels from God, most of them. They help. They use techniques and knowledge. Doctors have helped me in amazing ways. I've taken prescription drugs that have helped me in amazing ways. I'm not against doctors or pills, not by any means, because God works through them. But the trick is to know that the Spirit is doing the healing, not the person. That you are giving permission. We'll talk about those people as permission slips in a few minutes. So when that man said, "I'm healed," he was healed. How cool is that? So Buddha said, if you do not get it from yourself, where will you go for it? Course in Miracles, isn't it? It's like very, very similar. Some people think that the Course is kind of more of a Buddhist text or an Advaita Vedanta text, a non-dualistic text than a Christian text. I think it's all of it, really. But when you discover the truth, it's true no matter who says it. I mean, Buddha lived like 2,500 years ago, and he was onto it. If you do not get it from yourself, where will you go for it? And then, a couple thousand years later, comes along Course in Miracles that just says it in another way. Just says it in a language appropriate to our culture. If you do not get it from yourself, will you go to a husband, a doctor, a power place, a money place? No. Right here. Right here. So we talked about physicians for a moment. I talked about this before. And my friend Bashar, spiritual teacher Bashar, says that all forms of healing or spiritual advancement are what he calls permission slips. We've mentioned this before, but we're coming around to it again. And Bashar said a permission slip is any person, tool, technique, ritual that you believe is doing something to you or for you, but you're actually just using that for permission to do that to or for yourself. You following this? So the amulet seems to be healing you, or the injection seems to be healing you, or the lovemaking seems to be healing you, or the income seems to be prospering you. But the Course says that all those things are just you using something to give yourself because you don't have the confidence or the faith or the intention to get it directly. So you say, well, let me import that hot tub, or let me import that massage, or let me import those flowers. And then when I get around those things, then I will feel beauty. But the truth is that you could feel all those experiences without any of those objective things to project onto. Now, we're not saying don't use permission slips. Use them, they're fun. We all use them. But what the Course wants us to know is that we are the ones who are giving ourselves permission to heal through that thing. You see? Or not. So my mother was diagnosed with cancer many years ago, and I was visiting the doctor with her, and I said, how's my mom doing? He said, your mom's going to die. 6 months. And in that moment, I knew that my mother was going to die because she chose a doctor who told her she was going to die. And she did. She lived for a year, actually. I'm glad she kind of doubled his prognosis. But the point is that we choose doctors. Please hear this, it's really important now. We choose doctors or healers or any form of therapist or coach or accountants or architects or lawyers or any professional. We choose them to deliver us the information or result that we wish to receive. Now, my mother was done with her life. We talked about it, and she was well prepared to leave, and she did, and I respected her for it. I didn't want to see her go, but she was ready to go. Now, you know as well as I do that there are many people who get a cancer diagnosis or some other challenging diagnosis, and they find a doctor who says, I will help you live. That not everybody dies from this. In fact, you and I know a lot of people who come back from stage 4 cancer, terminal cancer diagnosis, And there are Bernie Siegels and Andy Wiles and Patch Adamses and, you know, a lot of good doctors who they not to say you're going to die. They say, well, let's work with this. I think you have a chance to live. So in that case, the client, the patient, has chosen to live, you understand, or to be healthy, and they find a doctor who delivers the diagnosis and prognosis in accord with their intention. People who are not ready to die either don't find doctors who tell them they're going to die, or if they do, they find another doctor. You know, I gave a lesson years ago called "Someone Will Say Yes," and I'll just recount it briefly now. Many years ago, I was flying back from San Francisco to Hawaii, and I had to change my ticket at the last minute. And I called up, and they said, "Oh no, you can't change the ticket. It's not refundable, not changeable. Blah 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 blah." And I actually went to the airport and I showed the ticket to the agent. "Oh no, you can't get on this flight unless you pay a lot of money." Blah 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 blah. I said, "No, that's not the answer I'm looking for here." So I went to a phone booth. That was in pre-cell phone days, and I called the airline. And I said, "Will you change my ticket?" "No." I called again. "Will you change?" "No." "Will you change my ticket?" "No." Finally, after 2 or 3 calls, I got somebody, "Yeah, I'll change your ticket. I'll put you on this flight." So this nice person put me on the flight, and I went back to the very desk where the person had denied me, and I showed them the new confirmation, and they put me on the airplane. And the title of that lesson was "Someone Will Say Yes." My friend Gudrun Cable, she wanted, I might have mentioned this before, I think I did, but I'll tell it again. She wanted to start a hotel where she could dedicate the hotel to great authors and great literature. And she found this beautiful hotel on the Oregon coast. And she applied for a loan, didn't get it, applied for a loan, didn't get it, applied for a loan. She went to 30 lenders. And finally, number 31 said yes. She got the loan. She developed this hotel. It's a huge success. I believe it's still going on. It's called the Sylvia Beach Hotel. You can go there and stay in the Edgar Allan Poe room, or the Dr. Seuss room, or the J.K. Rowling room. It's a very cool place. But you know, eventually somebody's yes. So if you are looking to get healthy, you will find a doctor who will say yes. That's the trick. Maybe it's the first one. Maybe it's the fourth one. Maybe it's the 10th one. Maybe you forget about doctors and you just go to God who says yes. That works too. But all agents are playing out your intentions for better or worse. You can try to wiggle around it and say maybe not, but it's just the way it is. Now let me give the course text on this. This is one of my most favoriteest quotes from the course. It's in the teacher's manual. And I forget the title of the section, but the section goes, "Who's the physician? Only the mind of the patient himself. The outcome is what he decides that it is. Special agents seem to be ministering to him, if they but give form to his own choice. He chooses them in order to bring tangible form to his desires." How rock solid is this? How much is this bottom line? So much searching that we've done and struggling and trying. This bottom line is the healing process right here. You do not need to go any further than this to understand how healing works. This is why the Course in Miracles is a life changer, a life saver. It says it is this that the agents do, nothing else. They are actually not needed at all. As my friend who got healed from that weird disease found, doctors couldn't heal him. Once again, we're not against doctors. Go to doctors. But ultimately, it's your choice to be healed that will heal you. The patient could merely rise up without their aid and say, "I have no use for this disease." There's no form of sickness that would not be cured at once. You can take the entire Course in Miracles and condense it to this. If you are seeking healing of any kind, mind, body, spirit, relationship, financial, career, read this paragraph and it will reel in all the power you've given to everyone outside you as the source of your well-being. Now, it doesn't say don't go to doctors, but it's saying that when you do go to a doctor and the doctor gives you a result, the doctor is an actor in the movie that you are producing. You are the script writer. And if you like what the doctor's telling you, work with that doctor. The doctor's going to help you. If you don't like what the doctor's telling you, go to somebody else who'll tell you what you want to hear. Pretty simple, but you got to practice it. Therefore, my friends, all healing is faith healing. We think, you go to a Christian person or a Reiki healer and they pray for you to get healed. So I had a faith healing. Well, if you go to a medical doctor and you get healed, that's a form of faith in the medical doctor. If you go to a witch doctor and the witch doctor heals, that's a form of faith in the witch doctor. If you go to a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, I happen to like acupuncture. I just do. And I go to this wonderful acupuncturist. I see her every couple of weeks, sometimes because I'm not feeling well, but usually just for maintenance. And I have faith in that because it works. So, and as long as it keeps working, I will keep going. So we're back to permission slips, aren't we? That you have faith in your permission slip. Well, really, ultimately, what you want to do is have faith in God. You can have faith in God through the permission slip if you like, but you're really having faith in a permission slip. And so let's kind of bring this around. We'll kind of wrap up soon. We'll go to questions. So one moment here. So the Course says that what you really are doing is you are letting love in. Don't you love this about the Course? It's nothing like it. That the Course says that love is the real healer. And because God is love, when you let God heal you, you're letting love heal you. Love equals God according to the Course in Miracles. So the Course is saying that all disease is denial of love, which means that there's something in your mind or heart that is keeping love at a distance. One way to do it is we look for love in all the wrong places, and we don't find it, and then we figure there's no love. But the Course is saying that when you get afraid, you kind of crimp the pipe, you crimp the hose. And just like water cannot get through a hose that's crimped, love cannot get through a consciousness that's crimped. And the Course is telling us that fear is the crimper. When you get afraid, you shut down, you contract. Your body gets stressed. And that's how disease gets started. And that's how it festers, because you're crimped and you're shut down. And the Course is just God saying, please just let me love you, would you? I love that song, Desperado, Eagles song. You better let somebody love you before it's too late. Great line, isn't it? And you could let the love of God in through a person or a child or a pet or a garden or music or art. Those are different valid ways to let love in, but really it's just love that's getting into your heart, that's had a lock on it. It's your thoughts alone that cause you pain. And the Course tells us over and over again that our natural state is wellness. That if we just could drop fear and drop resistance and drop waiting and drop attack and drop separation, then, well, we would just, like Abraham talks about the cork. You have put a cork in a bottle of water and the cork rises to the surface. Well, our wellness would rise to the surface just naturally if we didn't keep it crimped down, held down by fear. Nothing external to your mind can hurt or injure you in any way. There is no cause beyond yourself that can reach down and bring oppression. No one but yourself affects you. Wow. Well, in a way, it's bold, but in a way, it's empowering, because Even if you have used your mind to hurt yourself, at any given moment, you can switch your mind and use your mind to help yourself. This is why people have miraculous healings. They have a pattern of illness for many, many years, and then suddenly they change their mind, and all of a sudden they're well because they released the thoughts that were holding them down, and the cork floated, and they rose back up. Pretty simple. The course is simple. I know it doesn't seem that way because it's 1,200 pages, but it's 1,200 pages of saying the same thing, same simple thing over and over again in 1,000 different ways. The course is really, 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 really simple. Love and fear. Fear doesn't work. Love works. Choose love. That's the Course in Miracles. That's it. You don't need to know anything else. But then you got to do it. That's another story. And finally, well, let me say this, not finally. So it may sound like I'm against doctors or therapy. Not at all, not at all. The Course doesn't want us to just say, I'm not going to use any magic anymore. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to get everything from God. Well, if you can really do that, that's ideal, isn't it? But, you know, we're on a learning curve. We're on a progression. We do step by step by step, often by baby steps. So the Course does not want us to stop doing astrology or numerology or wearing amulets or going to healers or doing anything. It wants us to start to become aware, little by little, that it's our own choices, our own intentions that are making these esoteric sciences and objects and essential oils and all that good stuff work for us. That it wants us to start to become aware of how magic works. And then gradually, as we see that we are applying these techniques instead of the techniques applying themselves to us, then we gradually lighten up and we need less and less from the outer world. A friend of mine went to India and all he took was a toothbrush. He was on a surrender mission. Good luck. Okay. And finally, at the end of lesson 76, the Course tells us, dismiss all foolish magical beliefs today and hold your mind in silent readiness to hear the voice that speaks the truth to you. Magic imprisons, but the laws of God make free. Wow. Oh, the Course in Miracles is a doorway to freedom. And it's not enough to just read these words, but you got to practice them as well. And, you know, I've been doing the Course for many, many years, and it always seems like I'm just starting it for the first time. Like I'm just starting to get what it's about. Many, many layers that kind of peel away, peel away, peel away. Okay, I want to give you one more example, and then we'll go to Q&A. My brother Nishank, my brother from another mother in Mumbai, is standing by. I'm going to give you two more stories that I think are relevant. Many years ago, I knew this guy who was a very famous author and workshop leader, and he did an experiment. And he did his standard workshop in a large city, and he charged like $50 for a weekend retreat, weekend seminar. And he had like 300 people came. And he had a very successful weekend. And then a month or two later, he went back to the same city and he did the same workshop for $300. And he had like 300 people come. And the moral of the story is that all the people who believed that a workshop is good if it's inexpensive came to the first workshop, and they received benefit out of it because they had the belief that that's the way a workshop works. So they used that particular workshop and that fee as a permission slip for them to have a successful weekend. The second group had a belief system that if a workshop is expensive, then it must be really good and I'll get value out of it. And both sets of people gained the same amount of value from the workshop. One paid 50, one paid like 300 or something like that. So you can see how belief and permission slips operate in a very practical way in, quote, the real world, because everything we do represents our belief, and all the results we get represent our belief. And the second story comes from the New Testament. The story goes that there was a man who was blind, and Jesus told him to go to this pool. How does this work? I think Jesus took some mud. I think he actually spat in the mud, and he rubbed it, and he told the blind man to put it on his eyes. And then the blind man did it, and very soon he was healed, and he regained his sight. It's a miracle, miracle. Jesus told me to put mud in my eyes. Well, I don't think that the mud really healed his blindness. I think that it was his belief. I think it was the energy Jesus invested in that. Now, Jesus knew that this man's faith was not great enough that Jesus could just put his hands on him and be healed. This man needed a permission slip. So Jesus, in compassion, gave him the closest permission slip he could find, which happened to be mud. And that was the vehicle through which this man accepted healing. He would not have been able to accept healing directly, but he was able to accept it. One more great story, then we'll go to questions. By the way, if you have any questions, just post them, hit Q&A button, and Nishank will feed them to me in just 1 minute. So I don't know if you've seen the Mr. Rogers movies with Tom Hanks. It's wonderful, wonderful, Tom Hanks. So I actually knew a guy named Keith Varnum, who was a stagehand for Mr. Rogers many years ago. And he told me the story. He said that a lot of the big stagehands kind of made Mr. Rogers, fun of Mr. Rogers, because they were big burly guys, and Mr. Rogers was kind of light, you know, almost gay in their imagination, and they were kind of gruff, and behind his back they would make jokes about him. He said, however, Mr. Rogers had this little puppet set, and he would practice for the show. And while Mr. Rogers was practicing with these puppets, these big burly gay guys would come over and talk to the puppets and ask the puppets for advice. They would be coached by these puppets. And it was actually, of course, Mr. Rogers behind the puppets who was coaching them, but their judgments against Mr. Rogers prevented them from seeing him clearly as a healer, which he was in many ways. But for some reason, in their childlike minds, they relaxed with these puppets, so they accepted healing through these puppets, so to speak. They used these puppets as their permission slip to receive wisdom and coaching and counseling and healing. How cool is that? So God sends us people, Jesuses or Sai Babas or gurus or Krishnamurtis or people in the world who are indeed brilliant, divinely inspired people, but it's not those people who are healing us, it's the God nature, it's the divinity that is speaking through them that is giving us the blessing. Not to say you shouldn't go to Jesus or Krishnamurti or whoever, but they are puppets. Pretty much let's tell it like it is, that human beings are puppets through which divine teaching work. And you can go to the source, you can go to the middle person, but as long as you get the goods, that's what counts. Okay, good enough for now. Let us go to Q&A. My brother Nishank is standing by. Hey, let's see Nishank. We put his video on at one point and people thought he was really cute. So Nishank, you want to put your video on?
Hey guys.
There he is. All right.
Everyone.
This is Nishank.
My
He's in
hair looking
Mumbai,
good.
India. It's 7 o'clock in the morning or some weird time there. But thank you. And he's standing by. He's been getting questions. He'll speak them to me, and I'll do my best to answer. So what can we do in 10 minutes, Nishank? Let's hear.
Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for reminding us once again that it's trust and faith that heals more than anything else. Thank you very much. So we have a question by Lauren, who asks, when and how do we know when do we need help from others like a coach or a marketing person, etc.?
Well, Course says that we have the Holy Spirit, which is the divine guidance inside of us. And so if you feel drawn to a coach or a marketing teacher, and you feel good about being with them, and you feel peaceful and excited about being with them, and you think they can help you, then that's a good sign. So we don't want to get too out there and say, I don't need any coaches and I don't need any marketing people. If you feel drawn to somebody and it's successful and they have integrity and it works, then that's your answer. Let God reach you through that person, and maybe you'll grow beyond that person. Maybe you'll go deeper with them. But in any event, Spirit is guiding us to the right people. We need to trust our intuition. Next.
Thank you, Alan. So Linda asks, her 13-year-old has a very rigid thinking and they suspect he could be on an autism spectrum. Now they're helping him to believe that he has the power to change his circumstances. But as much as he progresses, it's like going 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. Is there any Course in Miracles teaching related to this that could help him and see these as opportunities and not failures?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, your power lies in the vision you hold of your son. So if you see him as a diagnosis or an autistic person or a limited person or a problematic person, in that moment, you are contributing to his problem. But if you hold the higher vision of him and recognize that the spirit within him could never be sick, could never be problematic, that no matter what doctors say about him, there's a whole person in there who is loving and lovable and brilliant and connected to spirit and capable of being reached by you, then you begin to build the bridge to his higher self. And the more you acknowledge his higher self, the more his higher self comes forth. Now, don't be put off by apparent lack of progress. This is illusion, this is Maya, this is distraction. Deal with it in whatever way you can. But keep holding the vision of his divinity and his beauty and his preciousness, and develop your relationship with his higher self. And then that's the self that you'll bring forth. This is the key to healing, to see the higher self, even in spite of the appearances of the limited self.
Thank you, Alan. There is always this thin line you explain between going to a healer and giving your power away. Thank you so much. So Candace asks, do you feel that Jesus feels that the teachers, as identified in the manual for teachers, are puppets as well? That could be so cool.
Yeah, we're all puppets. We're all, they talk about Krishna's flute. People, we used to pray, please make me like Krishna, let Krishna, let God play through me. So we are all, puppets is kind of a harsh word, but we can say we're all vessels, we're all vehicles, we're all channels, we're all avenues. We're, the body and the personality and whatever we do in the world is just an excuse or an avenue through which God shows up and delivers love to the world. And there's a wonderful lesson later on in the workbook. It goes, my eyes, my hands, my tongue, my feet are to be used today for Christ's purposes, which means that we have these physical forms, but Spirit wants to use these forms to bring love and healing into the world. So yeah, we're puppets, but it's not a bad puppet, it's a good puppet. So, pray to be a good puppet. Okay.
So Alan, we have a lovely question. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, sure, we have plenty of time. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry if I can't get the pronunciation of this name right. I think it is Sadhana. How can I use the course to help me as an animal rights activist? For example, I go to vigils at the slaughterhouse and give the pigs some water and love prior to them going to slaughter. It's heartbreaking and I don't know how to feel good about it. It's a very important question.
It's a great question, isn't it? Thank you very much. So it's kind of the same answer as the last question, that if you go into fear or anger or resistance, you diminish your power to be an excellent animal rights activist. The Course doesn't want to just to lay back and say, well, so animals being killed, so what? If you feel called and guided to make a stand for their well-being, then absolutely that's what you should do. However, how you do it is as important as the results you're getting. If you've gotten upset, then you've brought more suffering into the world. And if you're trying to remove the suffering of animals, but you're increasing your own suffering, you're not really accomplishing your purpose, are you? So I love the fact that you're giving them water and blessing them and praying for them. And you just have to do what you can. Dee and I live in a rural area, and a neighbor asked us if she could graze her sheep on our property. And at first, we didn't like the idea because eventually a lot of them were going to market. And then we thought, well, they're going to die anyway, so why not give them a good life while they're here? So now we let these sheep graze on our lawn. They're very happy. And so at least we're contributing to their well-being. Look, we're all going to market eventually, aren't we? And so, the question is, what can you do to enhance quality of life while a pig or a sheep or a horse or anybody is here? So I guess the bottom line to the question is, do your rights work, which is holy work, but at the same time, do your inner work and do your best to hold your peace and give love even while you're making a stand for how the world could be better.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks so much for that. And I think one last question. It's more like a placebo question. So for a headache, take an aspirin. What do you think? Do I say it only works because I believe it does?
Well, yeah, it only works because you believe it does. But if you need an aspirin, take an aspirin. I've taken aspirins. You have to. It's a good question. You have to work at the level of belief where you already stand. So if you believe an aspirin would work, then you should really take an aspirin. If you believe a surgery would work, you should get surgery. If you believe a chiropractic would work, you get chiropractic. So it's a really good note to end on, isn't it? Because you have to be true to your beliefs. And if you try to do something you don't believe in, it's not going to work. But if you do something you believe in, it's going to work. So, I'm all about relieving suffering. I don't think anybody should suffer for any reason. I don't think suffering is of God. I think pain is outside of our divine plan. So if you were with me and I was your friend and you said, I'm in pain, I'd like an aspirin, I would get you an aspirin. Because that's going to relieve suffering for you. And if you want to think afterwards, well, maybe I believe in the aspirin, please do that. But first take Gandhi said you can't talk to a hungry man about God, that you have to feed his belly first. And then when he's satisfied and relaxed, you can go for bigger picture. Okay.
Yes, actually, Alan, I had a first-hand experience with this because
Yes.
I was on a hypertension tablet.
Yes.
And it never worked because I was very angry that how can one tablet decide my life?
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I switched to being grateful to that, being grateful to people who's prescribed it and being grateful to the people who invented it, the same medicine started working. So it pretty much sums it up.
So the gratitude and the appreciation and the intention overrode fear resistance. So
absolutely.
Good work. God works through doctors and pills, and God also works directly. You have to choose what level you want to meet God at. Okay, so it looks like our time is up. I hope you've all found value from today. We've covered a lot of territory, and I thank you for joining me. Nishank, thank you so much for joining us from across the planet. Nishank is teaching Course in Miracles in India and starting lots of lovely groups there, so thank you very much. We are going to close with a moment of prayer. Let's take a deep breath together if we can. Great Spirit, we are so grateful that you have given us many doorways to healing. We are grateful that you do not wish for us to be in pain in any way. And so we open our hearts now that you might guide us to the best route for each of us to come home to you. We are willing to use the things of the world to arrive at God, and we are willing to go directly to God too, depending on our personal preference. Thank you for showing up as A Course in Miracles. Thank you for showing up as truth in all forms we have a way out of fear and pain and suffering. We claim it now, and we are humbly grateful for the gifts that you've given us right now, even in the world, right where we stand. And so it is.